If someone tried to cross you, and instead of reacting, you stayed calm, this isn't weakness. It's something most people don't understand, and that lack of understanding is exactly what unsettles them, especially when you're a Sigma male. Most people grow up believing that resistance has a certain look and sound. They expect anger to flare, voices to rise, defenses to be shouted, or fear to leak through body language. They rely on emotional noise as confirmation that their pressure is working. When that noise never arrives, their entire framework collapses. That expectation is precisely what works against them when they deal with a Sigma male, because a Sigma does not operate on the same emotional frequency as the average person. He does not move impulsively, he does not announce his intentions, and he does not react in predictable ways when challenged, tested, or disrespected. This absence of predictable reaction creates confusion, not because the Sigma is attempting to manipulate, but because he refuses to participate in emotional games designed to extract leverage. When someone tries to cross a Sigma male, they arrive with assumptions already formed. They assume pressure will force compliance, provocation will trigger an outburst, intimidation will create fear, or subtle disrespect will provoke explanation and justification. But the Sigma male has already detached from the need to prove, perform, or defend his identity. That detachment is where the confusion truly begins. Instead of escalating, he observes. Instead of defending, he withdraws. Instead of explaining himself, he allows silence to communicate what words never could. To emotionally reactive people, this feels deeply unsettling. They cannot read him, they cannot gauge his emotional state, and they cannot anticipate his next move. And when prediction disappears, control disappears with it. The Sigma male understands something most people never stop long enough to learn. Real power does not come from visible dominance or loud assertion, but from emotional self-regulation. The moment someone realizes they cannot provoke you, intimidate you, or destabilize you emotionally, they lose their footing. This is why crossing a Sigma male rarely produces the result people expect. There is no loud retaliation, no dramatic revenge, and no public confrontation. Instead, there is distance, indifference, and a quiet recalibration of boundaries that needs no announcement. That silence forces others to sit alone with their own intentions. In this video, we'll break down 6 genius ways Sigma males naturally confuse anyone who tries to cross them, not through aggression, but through composure, psychological clarity, and an internal code that does not bend under pressure. These traits are not learned overnight. They are forged through isolation, discipline, and self-mastery. And if you've noticed that people seem thrown off by your calm, your silence, or your refusal to engage, this is why. Point 1, they refuse to explain themselves. One of the most subtle yet powerful traits of a Sigma male is his refusal to over-explain his actions, intentions, or decisions. And this restraint is not rooted in arrogance, but in deep psychological self-possession. In everyday social dynamics, explanations are often demanded, not for clarity, but for control. Because when someone asks, "Why did you do that?" the unspoken subtext is frequently, "Submit your reasoning so I can evaluate, judge, or reshape it." The Sigma male recognizes this instinctively, not as a theory, but as lived experience. He understands that constant explanation places a man in a lower psychological position, one where he unconsciously seeks approval, reassurance, or acceptance from others who may not have earned the right to question him. When crossed, misunderstood, or subtly challenged, he does not rush to defend his character, correct assumptions, or repair perceptions unless doing so serves a clear, strategic, or practical purpose. He knows that explaining himself emotionally often feeds the very dynamic designed to weaken him. This absence of explanation creates a quiet discomfort in others, particularly those accustomed to manipulating narratives, provoking emotional reactions, or extracting guilt through endless questioning. The human mind dislikes uncertainty. It wants labels, predictable responses, and emotional entry points. When it cannot categorize someone, cannot provoke a justification, and cannot pull a reaction, it becomes unsettled. The Sigma male's silence in these moments is not passive. It is active, psychological neutrality. He neither agrees nor resists. He simply remains unmoved. This calm refusal sends a subtle but unmistakable signal. His identity is internally defined, not socially negotiated. Over time, people learn that probing him for emotional explanations yields nothing, and that attempts to corner him into self-defense fall flat. As a result, the dynamic shifts. Conversations become more respectful. Accusations soften into questions. Manipulation gives way to caution. Others begin to choose their words more carefully because they sense there is no leverage to exploit. The Sigma male does not announce boundaries. His behavior enforces them automatically. By refusing to over-explain, he preserves mental energy, protects his autonomy, and maintains control over his inner world. He allows silence to do the work that endless words often fail to accomplish. In a society conditioned to equate transparency with weakness and constant justification with virtue, his restraint stands out as rare discipline. It teaches those around him an unspoken lesson. Access to his thoughts, motives, and reasoning is a privilege, not an entitlement. And respect is not demanded. It is quietly earned through the realization that emotional pressure simply does not move him. Point 2. They do not react on the timeline of others. Most conflicts rely on timing, and timing is often the invisible weapon people use to gain control. Pressure, urgency, and emotional momentum are carefully applied to force reactions before clarity has time to form. The Sigma male understands this instinctively, which is why he refuses to operate on anyone else's emotional clock. When crossed, he does not speed up. He slows down. He pauses before responding, not out of hesitation, but out of deliberate restraint. He allows silence to exist where others expect immediacy, knowing that silence itself disrupts the rhythm of manipulation. This delay is not passive. It is a form of strategic calm, rooted in deep self-control. Psychological research consistently shows that individuals who remain composed under pressure are perceived as more competent, authoritative, and dominant, because they signal internal stability when others are losing theirs. By refusing to react quickly, the Sigma male deprives the aggressor of emotional feedback, and without feedback, emotional tactics collapse. Anger fades when it is not mirrored. Provocation loses its power when it meets stillness instead of resistance. The aggressor begins to feel exposed, uncertain, and off balance because their usual methods rely on predictable emotional reactions. What was meant to rush him now traps them in their own impatience. Over time, those who attempt to corner or pressure the Sigma male start questioning their own position, not his. His calm creates a psychological vacuum where the other person's urgency feels excessive and unjustified. In that vacuum, mistakes are made, words are overextended, and intentions become visible. The Sigma male simply observes, gathering information while conserving energy. He understands that dominance does not always announce itself through force or volume. Often, it's established through restraint. By choosing when to speak and when to remain silent, he controls the pace of the interaction without appearing to control anything at all. His patience quietly establishes authority, not by overpowering others, but by refusing to be moved by them. In a world addicted to immediacy, his stillness becomes unsettling, and that is precisely why it works. Point 3, they maintain the same demeanor, regardless of disrespect. Disrespect is often a test, not an attack. It is a subtle probe designed to locate insecurity, to see where a person is fragile, reactive, or easily destabilized. Most people fail this test without realizing it. They respond instinctively, raising their voice, tightening their jaw, shifting their posture, or rushing to defend their image. In doing so, they reveal exactly what the provocation was seeking. The Sigma male does none of this. His tone remains steady, neither cold nor emotional. His facial expression stays neutral, free from tension or forced composure. His posture remains relaxed, grounded, unthreatened. This consistency is deeply unsettling to those attempting to provoke him, because it denies them the confirmation they are seeking. From a psychological perspective, human behavior is driven by feedback loops. An action is taken, and the response determines whether that action is repeated, intensified, or abandoned. When disrespect produces no visible reaction, the aggressor is denied a loop. Instead of dominance or validation, they encounter silence, calm, and emotional absence. This creates cognitive dissonance. The mind struggles to reconcile effort with no reward. The aggressor begins to question themselves. Was the insult ineffective? Was it ignored? Did it miss its target entirely? This uncertainty quietly shifts the power dynamic. The Sigma male's emotional regulation is not passive, it is communicative. It signals internal stability, self-containment, and a clear boundary that does not need to be spoken. It communicates that his sense of self is internally sourced, not dependent on approval, fear, or reaction. His self-worth is not up for negotiation and cannot be pressured into response. Over time, this behavior retrains the environment around him. People learn, often unconsciously, that provocation yields nothing. Some adjust their behavior, adopting respect or neutrality, because disruption no longer works. Others withdraw entirely, sensing that their usual tactics have no leverage. In both cases, the Sigma male achieves resolution without escalation, dominance without display, and authority without confrontation. He does not correct others. He conditions them. His silence is not weakness, but selective engagement. His calm is not avoidance, but control. By refusing to participate in emotional games, he removes himself from the hierarchy that disrespect is trying to establish. What remains is a quiet, immovable presence that speaks louder than any reaction ever could. Point 4, they walk away without drama. In most social conflicts, departure is treated as a performance. People announce their exit, explain themselves, defend their position, or seek validation for leaving. They want to be seen as justified, understood, or morally superior. The Sigma male moves differently. When a situation becomes unproductive, disrespectful, or subtly manipulative, he does not escalate, negotiate, or dramatize. He disengages quietly. No speeches, no warnings, no final explanations, just absence. This quiet withdrawal is not weakness, avoidance, or emotional shutdown. It is precision. It reflects a deep understanding of human psychology and an even deeper commitment to self-respect. For individuals who rely on emotional dominance, control, or reaction, this behavior is deeply destabilizing. They expect confrontation, resistance, or at least a visible emotional response. Instead, they are met with silence. Psychologically, unresolved interactions occupy more mental space than resolved ones. The human mind is wired to seek closure, meaning, and narrative completion. When none is provided, the mind loops. By leaving without drama, the Sigma male unintentionally becomes a lingering presence. The aggressor replays the interaction repeatedly, searching for a reaction, a hidden message, or a sign that they still matter. There is none. This is not manipulation. It is the natural consequence of boundaries upheld without negotiation. The Sigma male understands that attention is currency, and that energy spent explaining oneself to the wrong people is energy permanently lost. He does not argue to be right. He does not stay to be understood. He does not attempt to correct those committed to misunderstanding him. His silence is not passive, it is selective. It communicates one thing with absolute clarity. Access has been revoked. This quiet exit preserves dignity, prevents emotional entanglement, and protects mental clarity. While others exhaust themselves proving points, the Sigma male reallocates his focus toward growth, purpose, and inner stability. He understands that not every conflict deserves participation, and not every provocation deserves acknowledgement. Time and energy are finite resources, and he spends them only where there is alignment, respect, and mutual value. In a world addicted to noise, explanation, and reaction, his absence becomes the loudest statement of all. Point 5, they remember, but do not retaliate. A common misconception is that calm men are forgetful or passive, that silence equals weakness and restraint equals indifference. But the Sigma male is neither careless nor unaware, and his stillness is not the absence of perception, but the result of complete awareness held under discipline. He remembers every breach of trust, every subtle pattern of disrespect, and every moment where a boundary was tested under the assumption that it would not be defended. Nothing escapes him, not the tone shift, not the repeated excuse, not the quiet attempt to take more than what was offered. Yet what distinguishes him is not memory alone, but restraint. He does not respond with immediate retaliation, emotional displays, or reactive confrontation, because he understands that impulsive reactions often reward the very behavior they seek to punish. Instead, he adjusts access. Emotional availability decreases without announcement. Trust is withdrawn without drama. Opportunities that once existed quietly vanish. Conversations become shorter. Engagement becomes selective. Presence becomes conditional. This delayed response is often far more impactful than confrontation, because it removes the aggressor's influence without granting them the satisfaction of conflict or the leverage of emotional chaos. Psychologically, this creates deep confusion. There was no argument to defend against, no accusation to counter, no explosion to justify their behavior. Yet something has undeniably shifted. The dynamic they relied on no longer exists, and the silence forces reflection where noise would have allowed deflection. The Sigma male understands that people reveal their true intentions when they are denied access, not when they are confronted. By the time the other person begins to sense the distance, the internal decision has already been made. The relationship has changed at the root, not on the surface. There is no announcement, because none is needed. This approach preserves his dignity, because he does not beg for respect, explain boundaries, repeatedly, or perform morality for validation. He enforces standards through behavior, not speeches. It also prevents unnecessary conflict because he refuses to wrestle with those who thrive on reaction. His calm is not forgiveness, and his silence is not forgetting. It is a deliberate recalibration of where energy flows and where it no longer does. The Sigma male moves forward without closing scenes because he understands that closure is often a courtesy, not a requirement. When access is removed, the lesson is already complete. Point 6. They never try to win the social narrative. Many people become entangled in conflicts not because the situation truly requires resolution, but because their ego feels threatened by how they are perceived. They rush to defend their image, explaining themselves repeatedly, arguing their position, collecting allies, and attempting to control the narrative before it slips out of their hands. This reaction is rooted in fear, the fear of being misunderstood, misjudged, or diminished in the eyes of others. The Sigma male does not participate in this cycle. He understands that social narratives are fragile, constantly shifting, and largely driven by emotion, projection, and group bias, rather than objective truth. He knows that today's villain can become tomorrow's hero, and that public opinion often rewards noise over substance. Instead of exhausting himself trying to correct every false impression, he anchors himself in consistency of behavior. He moves with the awareness that time is the ultimate filter. Over time, patterns emerge. People begin to notice who remains calm under pressure, who does not overreact when provoked, and who continues to act with integrity, regardless of who is watching. Silence, in this context, is not weakness, but restraint. It creates space for observation. Those who thrive on manipulation and short-term reputation control become unsettled by this approach because they depend on immediate reactions to maintain influence. The Sigma male's refusal to chase approval, defend every accusation, or perform for validation sends a powerful signal of self-assuredness. His confidence is not loud or theatrical. It is rooted in self-trust. He understands that character cannot be explained into existence. It must be demonstrated repeatedly. Each action becomes a quiet data point, accumulating into a reputation that speaks for itself, while others burn energy managing impressions. He invests energy in alignment between values and behavior. In the end, those who matter, those capable of discernment, recognize his character without needing persuasion, and those who do not were never the audience he was meant to convince.